Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, Jeff Mack, Newmarket Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Pat Riley, USI, and Ben Drummond, D2 Integrated Solutions. And Jeffrey, can you give us a rundown on who's on the air with us today?
Sure, Herb. We have a great show. We're starting with Doug George, President and CEO of Stuebner, James Lovett, CEO of Myonex, Matt Handel is the CEO of ExpressCells, and Ed Zabar is the CEO of Verif-y.
Let's get to know our first guest, Doug George, President and CEO of Stuebner. Doug, what is Stuebner? What are you guys doing?
We are a general contractor completing commercial projects in Southeast Pennsylvania.
And where are you from originally, and where are you? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Born and raised in Douglasville, Pennsylvania. 2 brothers. I am the middle.
Gotcha. Jeffrey?
Doug, mom and dad, tell us a little bit about what mom and dad did, especially when you were a younger kid.
My mother was a 40-plus year employee of the local Stanley Steamer franchise. And my father was an entrepreneur, master electrician out of the Navy SEALs or Seabees, and brought me into construction.
So you worked for your dad as a kid, right?
I did.
What do you take to work today that you learned from your dad growing up?
I take the persistence, showing up every day, and the effort it takes to show up every day and do your best every day.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
Yeah, Doug, you told us that you played soccer with kids 3 or 4 years older than you. And I'm just curious what those teammates would tell us about you.
My drive to win and succeed, as well as my ability to see things a little bit differently than everybody else, especially on the field.
How did you demonstrate that to your teammates?
I was always placed at a position of I don't want to say captain, but in charge. I just saw things differently, tried to evaluate and identify areas that I could exploit to win, to succeed.
And what's the impact of that today for your business?
It's the same. I do the same thing. I develop a team, and we identify success with the team base, with the owner and the client, and
Super.
We integrate.
Matthew?
Yeah, Doug, you grew up at home with a team of 3 boys. You're the middle of 3. Tell me what that do to you.
It was a very competitive market. I joke about it, but dinner time was a competition.
Hey, tell me more about that.
Yeah, if you showed up late, you sometimes didn't get a full plate.
Wow. And so what is that competition between you? What is that competition between you and your brothers? What does that do to you that you bring to the office every day today?
The desire to put the effort forth necessary to succeed. You got to show up. You got to show up. You got to put the effort in, and you got to persist.
Ben?
Doug, what was this pivotal moment in your childhood or your youth where you realized that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and look at the whole puzzle and not just one of the pieces?
Early on, I noticed that I liked solving problems and putting entire puzzle pieces together, and the whole puzzle, not just one piece. From assembling teams, but to the projects that we do here every day, it's constantly solving problems and putting pieces together.
Perfect. Pat?
Doug, back to soccer. In the green room, you mentioned that 2 of your former coaches, Fred and Steve, were role models for you. Can you tell us why?
Again, a very similar theme, the persistence and the effort to continue to evolve and learn and to look at things differently, from a different angle, and be able to evaluate the situation differently.
And how did you bring what you learned there to the office every day now, or to the work site?
I have a tendency to do the same thing here today. I look at problems differently than others. I'm able to, which provides me the opportunity to see solutions. And we develop a team environment that everyone contributes to the success of the project. And it's just something that we show up every day and we work hard every day.
So you're constantly triangulating and trying to figure out what's going on in order to figure out what the real priorities are, what the real issues are all the time?
Every day, every hour.
So maybe as opposed to looking at things differently, you're looking at everything all the time.
Yes.
What do you mean?
On a standard project that we do, there's probably anywhere between 50 and 1,000 different individuals that contribute some level, and being able to identify the key points that can keep everybody engaged, and also providing full effort is what gets you to the finish line. So
when you played sports, were you constantly adjusting who should be in what position, when, where, why?
Constantly. Yes.
Matthew?
Yeah, I was struck earlier in the green room. You said you went to work with your dad. What day did you go to work with your dad?
Saturdays.
So and you actually said you looked forward to it, right?
Absolutely, I did.
So on Saturday mornings when I was watching cartoons, you were looking forward to going to work with your dad. Why were you looking forward to it?
Listen, when you're 8 years old, you can go to a construction job, and it was a long time ago, and you can climb on roofs and in projects that are half built, and there's nails and hammers, and I mean it was very intriguing for me.
But so when you were a little kid, you wanted to go to these job sites because you were already seeing like the full job and the full picture and enjoying being there and looking at all of that. Is that fair?
I enjoyed seeing the components behind the full picture, and as they were put together. You walk into a finished space, you see the finished space. I enjoyed seeing the physical components behind the finished space.
So you're truly a builder. You're truly an entrepreneur. You like putting things together. You like building.
Absolutely. I love building.
Doug, you grew up in a pretty competitive environment. You have two brothers that are competitive. It sounds like your dad had set the bar high sometimes. What's the benefit to your clients of that environment?
The desire that I have to have the project succeed for them and their definition of success.
Wait a minute. Wait, hold on for a second. You really meant that? I just saw that look in your face. I thought winning was you making as much money as possible.
Early on in my career, I would have agreed. Later in my career, I've acknowledged that success is defined by the team and the client. And it's more profitable for the entire team to achieve success rather than one component.
Do you have business could be cutthroat and blood and guts. Do you have ongoing relationships, especially in the construction industry?
I do. We work for a lot of the same clients, same architects.
So your approach keeps everybody bonded all the time. You're looking to win, win, win. You're not looking to win. Correct.
Because I will tell you through experience, a win-win is better than a win.
Got you. Jeffrey?
Doug, you're the CEO of a family business. When you walk in the front door at home, you have 4 kids and Mia's there. Are you the CEO at home?
No.
What have you learned from your kids?
That home is not the office. They vary. I have 3 daughters who are very opinionated and have no problem telling me where I fit at that current moment.
And it sounds to me like you sort of recognize that in different environments you have to play different roles. That's probably one of your strengths in the business, isn't it? That you're playing different roles, taking in all this information all the time, trying to make sure everybody's winning. Your nature is to play different positions. Am I correct about that?
Correct. I wear all the hats, and I can fit in any position, and that is one of my strengths. That I can fit in any one of those components from start to finish.
So your nature is to take responsibility, to keep triangulating, keep trying to figure out where everything fits, and to make sure that everybody's winning together so that there's ongoing relationships, huh?
Absolutely.
How old is this business?
The business was founded in 1951.
Mm-hmm. What's the website address for the organization known as E.R. Stuebner?
ERSCON.com.
Let me have that one more time.
ERSCON.com.
And Doug, what's the best part of your job?
The people.
That's what I figured you'd say. What do you mean the people? What are you talking about?
The interaction with my own team as well as the clients as well. The opportunity I get every day to solve an issue and pull success from that problem.
We've been speaking with Doug George, President and CEO of E.R. Stuebner here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away.
You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors.
Back. We're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce James Lovett, CEO of Myonex. James, what is Myonex? What are you guys doing?
Myonex is a leading provider of services for clinical trial supply.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm originally from a small town in Kentucky. I have 2 older brothers.
All righty. Jeffrey?
So James, a small town in Kentucky. Interesting background. What did growing up in a small town, how did that affect your life and your professional career?
Well, one thing it did for my life and my professional career is the entire range of people. In a big city, you kind of live in your own social economic world. But in a small town, there was a Fortune 500 company headquartered there, and I knew the CEO and their kids. But also, I knew people who lived in public housing or couldn't afford a telephone, and they were good friends. So I knew pretty much everyone.
And what do you use every day as a CEO that you learn from that experience?
So you deal with all kinds of people. You deal with people from all levels of your company. You deal with senior people at clients. It's in our company, it's really the quote junior unquote employees who are really doing the work for the customer and make the difference. And you learn to value them.
Drew?
Hey, James, when was the first time you took on a leadership role as a youth?
I was a competitive swimmer growing up. And in my early teens, I kind of became the leader of my age group team.
And what would your teammates tell us about you?
I think they would say that I had a really strong work ethic and that I led by example.
And what's the benefit to your business of that experience?
I once had probably my best coach years later told me that I did more with less talent in swimming than anyone he ever coached. I basically had no talent. And so I had to work really hard and really study how to be better because I wasn't going to get there naturally. And so in my business career, that kind of constantly looking to improving and bringing the work ethics made a big difference.
Matthew?
I feel like that also connects to your being the youngest of 3. What did that do to you being the youngest of 3 boys?
Well, definitely. When you're the youngest and the littlest among boys, you're always behind. You're always trying to keep up, and you're always trying to prove yourself and get better.
And I might have messed with my younger brothers a little, but I also tried to help them. Did your brothers have a positive impact on you, your older brothers?
Definitely. One brother in particular, while he definitely messed with me some, he also really took me under his wing, taught me how to play different sports, got me into reading, which I still enjoy, and would take me backpacking with him.
And what is that relationship with him and that mentoring? What's that got to do with what you're doing today at Myonex?
I've never really thought about it before, but I think a big part of my job is mentoring people within the company so that they can continue to get better and make a bigger difference for the customer. And that is a multiplier effect that's bigger than anything I can do myself.
Ben?
James, you mentioned 8 to 14, you were swimming. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's a pretty individual sport, right?
It's an individual sport, usually in the race, unless, of course, you're in a relay. But it's also really a team sport because you train together, and the training is extremely intense. 2-a-day practices, 10 months a year, 4 or 5 hours a day. And so you really bond with these people over time through going through that together. And I'm still friends, even now, 40 years later, with people I swam with back then.
And that bonding experience, it kind of sits between the relationship between the individual contribution and the team. How does that carry over into your business and your experience as a CEO?
I think it's kind of the same thing as running a company. You have a team of people and you're trying to accomplish something that's usually pretty challenging because you've got customers who have important demands that need to be met. I mean, our customers are developing new medicines. You've got competitors that are trying to beat you. So you bond through trying to address those challenges.
Mm-hmm. Pat?
James, what did mom and dad do for a living?
My dad was a lawyer and also kind of an entrepreneur on the side in the town I grew up in. And my mom stayed home and did her best to take care of us, which was challenging.
So it sounds like you kind of followed in your father's footsteps a little bit, being a CEO and an attorney. What characteristics do you share with your father?
My dad set a great example in terms of work ethic, and he had unbelievable integrity. And I hope that I can mirror that to some degree. He really set a great example from that perspective, even when it was difficult.
And how do those characteristics show up today at Myonex?
Well, in our business, you see the same people again and again and again. And if you can if you can earn a reputation for doing the right thing and being trustworthy, they will come back to you again.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
James, Myonex distributes and is important to get drugs to people to save lives and help physical conditions. I remember you've been in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, and your mom had colon cancer when at a younger age. And I think you told me that the medicines she took actually came from a company that you worked with. Tell us the experience about your mom and you being in the pharma distribution.
Yes. So I've been in the pharma industry for about a little over 20 years, which is actually not my entire career. I'm old enough now that's only part of my career. And I mean, that's maybe 10 years in the industry. My mother got stage 4 colon cancer, which did ultimately take her life. But the main regimen that she was on was something that the company I worked with at the time had helped develop. And it kind of ceased being just a job then, because I really saw the impact I could have. Even though she ultimately passed, it extended her life and it gave her a better quality of life. And it gave me a really personal window into the difference that what our industry does can have for people. So even though I'm not a scientist, if I can help the scientist advance new medicines, that's very fulfilling.
You're really doing that mission, distributing to a larger population at Myonex with all the drugs that you're getting into the people's hands.
So our mission is all about taking time, cost, and waste out of clinical trial supply. So if we can make it help contribute to a clinical trial going faster, or if we can make it less expensive, we get new medicines to market, and hopefully as a result, they cost a little less and become more affordable.
What are you most proud of, James?
I would say it's a combination of that and the team growing and developing over time. It's, I'm the same person I've been for 30 years, and yet our business is growing. So it's not me, it's really everybody else. And if I can help them grow and develop, that's what I'm most proud of.
Mm-hmm.
James, I'm curious, you mentioned that you had a swim coach that told you really didn't have much talent, but you also mentioned that you are an Olympic hopeful, right? So what did breaking through over and over again as a kid that really was overperforming his ability do for you?
Well, let me be candid, Drew. I was really only an Olympic hopeful in my own mind.
That's okay.
But I had calculated how much I had to get faster per year to be able to be, at Olympic quality at the speeds I thought it would be when I was in my 20s. And I stayed on that track for a couple of years, and it was a matter of hard work and staying focused on it. And it's the same thing in business, or I think anything you do as an adult in life. If it were easy, everyone would do it. And the difference isn't so much how smart you are, how talented you are. It's the effort you bring and the willingness to learn and try different things.
Matthew?
So I'm fascinated by swimming, watching people just do the same thing up and down forever. What did you think about when you were swimming?
There's kind of a Zen element to it, because there's a lot of, even though it's very repetitive, there's small things make a huge difference. Small things in technique, small things in effort, and keeping your focus on that in practice makes a big difference.
That actually sounded almost exactly like your description of what you're doing at your business. Is that right? Getting drugs out faster, and helping people. Is that a fair comparison?
I've never thought about it that way, but I think it probably is, Matthew. I think small improvements, as they compound and pile on top of each other over time, end up making a big difference.
Wow. So it sounds like it's like honing and being persistent and making sure you're always doing things better on behalf of your clients, like you were doing when you were swimming.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What's the website address for this organization known as Myonex?
Myonex.com, Myonex.com.
We've been speaking with James Lovett, CEO of Myonex, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Matt Handel, who's CEO of an organization known as ExpressCells. Matt, what is ExpressCells? What are you guys doing?
We're a biotechnology company. We do genetic engineering.
Mm-hmm. And where you're from originally, and how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm from originally New York and then northern New Jersey. I have one twin sister.
Twin sister, huh? All right, Jeffrey?
That's interesting. I grew up with twin sisters, although I was older than them, but it's a unique world. Tell us, what was the effect of having a twin? And I think you mentioned it's just not all about yourself. What was the effect of being a twin and having a twin today?
Well, it means that, as you said, I was never the one person in the family. At school, we were in some of the same classes. We're always on the same bus. It makes you realize you're not a solo act.
And how does that affect your growing this company, ExpressCells?
Well, I try to run the company the same way. A lot of entrepreneurs, think they can do it all on their own, and that's not feasible. When we run our company, everyone has a voice. We have some very raucous team meetings, but it makes us stronger in the end.
Drew?
Matt, what would your best friend growing up tell us about you?
He'd laugh and say I was a nerd. I've been trying to live that down my entire life.
What's the positive impact of being a nerd as a young kid?
Is there a positive impact?
I don't know, is it?
But yeah, I think part of it is I was very focused on academics, and that actually worked to my advantage, helped me get into places where I could end up in the biotechnology world.
And how has it impacted your business today?
Well, as I joke, I'm the least educated person in our business right now, and that's probably a good thing. It makes me appreciate what smart people can do.
Matthew?
And Matt, you told us you were into music growing up. What kind of music do you like?
I was very much into 80s, 70s new wave, alternative. I did like classic rock, but I've got an eclectic musical taste. People are surprised that I like a lot of hip hop.
So does that eclectic taste and you're liking all kinds of different music, what's that got to do with who you are and how you run your company?
Well, it means that a business needs to be diverse. And a lot of people speak about diversity, but they don't live it. We have a very diverse team, not just in terms of ethnicities, but in terms of viewpoints. And I think that makes for a stronger team. Again, you get to hear all sides of a discussion and you hopefully make a better decision.
So you think that like that diversity is not just a talking point, it actually helps the business do better?
Well, it does. Our customers are scientists, and they're a very diverse group. We can't just assume one size fits all.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
Matt, you mentioned in the green room that your mother was a teacher, but kind of took a shift to reinvent herself as a librarian. Could you tell us a little bit about what impact that had on you?
Well, yeah, she stopped working, went back to school at a time when financially that was a little difficult. But she ended up loving what she did. And it's an indication that you shouldn't just accept what you have. You need to keep pushing forward and find the right fit and not be afraid of change.
And how has that, seeing that kind of leap of faith to make this pivot, how has that carried over into your ability to start a company and run a business?
Well, I went from big pharma to a startup world, and that can be very scary. They're very different worlds, but you need to be able to make that jump and, more importantly, adapt when you do.
Mm-hmm. Pat?
Matt, how old were you when you first started making money, and what was your first job?
I was in high school. I flipped burgers at the local Burger King.
And what was it that you did differently from the other kids there?
I didn't do anything differently. They do not want you to do everything differently. I found that incredibly boring.
And tell me more about that. What is that? How does that impact what you do today?
Well, every day is different. Every project is different. Starting a company is different. I'm looking for challenges, and going into a biotechnology startup means that you're going to face different challenges and different situations almost every day.
Mm-hmm. How young were you, Matt, when you started challenging yourself, and what was going on?
I'm not sure how I can answer that, because it's how you define challenging. If you mean academically, I think I did that at an early age. If you think more socially, well, this is the ex-nerd talking. I think it took a while for me to realize that you could challenge yourself in every way possible.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
So, Matt, you spent time in big pharma. You were at Merck and Shire, but you're running your own company. You're an entrepreneur now. You told us you worked for your aunt when you were growing up and that she was an entrepreneur. How did the story go, and what did you learn from her?
Well, she actually founded 5 companies that failed, and number 6 became incredibly successful.
Wow.
What I learned is you need to keep pushing forward. You need to find an opportunity that really attracts you. It also means you need to hire really good people and have a very clear vision of how to run your company.
And she taught you that, Matt?
I think she taught it more by my working there and observing and learning.
What were you? What kind of business was it? How young were you when you started working there, and what'd you do?
I worked in college. It was a computer business. She actually was selling systems to educational facilities like high schools or county boards of education. And I actually went and did the layout. I'd go on site and actually figure out what computer and what terminal went where.
What did you learn from that experience that has anything to do with building this current business of yours, happened to be known as ExpressCells, that computer-related business to this life science business?
Well, what you learn is that you need to hire really good people. My aunt did that. It also means that you need to have a very clear focus of where you want to go with the company. But the third thing is to be flexible. If you looked at the business and how it evolved, it looked very different 10 years after founding than when it started.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
I'm just curious. You mentioned you like to read a lot. Was there any particular books you can remember that inspired you?
Be honest, not really. It was more reading a lot than having one specific meaningful book.
And you also said you were in the band, you played trombone. What was that experience like, and what was your role?
Well, trombone, I enjoyed it. Met my best friend doing that, but no one ever, paid a trombonist to play Led Zeppelin in front of 5,000 people. It's a part of an ensemble. And again, it teaches you how to fit in with the overall group.
And what's the benefit to your business of that experience?
Well, I don't play trombone anymore, which is probably a good benefit because people don't have to hear me play it. But again, when you're in a band with, say, 60 to 100 people, you need to learn how to contribute and do your individual role, but also to blend with others. And even if you're the leader of the company, you still need to make sure that you're blending in with your team.
Matt, you have a great sense of humor. Like the whole time you've been so funny. Where did that come from? Was somebody in your family always cracking up? Or?
No, I have no idea where it comes from. And if you ask my children, they would completely disagree.
Really?
Make any funny comments at all.
And you have a twin sister, huh?
Yes.
So what's her first name?
Her name's Rebecca.
If we asked Rebecca, is she surprised at how you turned out, this entrepreneur in the life science industry, would she be surprised?
I think so. Remember, I came from 25 years in big pharma. I had parents who were educators. My dad worked for the same school system, the New York City school system, for 40 years. So it's not in our family's nature to just break out and start doing something on our own.
Mm-hmm. So what was what gave you the confidence to do that?
When I was at Shire, I worked in business development. We spent a lot of time buying other companies. And what I realized was that I was on the wrong side of the table. I love Shire. It's a great company, but it was a big company at the end. We were dealing with small companies, and I just looked over there and I said, I can do this.
You could do what?
I thought, based on what I saw, we can create something that'll grow and be valuable and be fun.
And where'd that confidence come from?
I'm still not sure.
Maybe it has to do with the fact of this nerd and the sister and the bonding, because you're pretty bonded in terms of your relationships, aren't you?
I try to be. Having a twin sister, as I said, we're pretty close.
You really depend on your teammates?
Oh, whenever an entrepreneur or any leader says, I alone am doing this, it makes me really doubt them because, whether you're running a company of 8 people, 800 or 8,000, you're not doing it by yourself. Now you can influence and direct people, and that's what a leader should do. But in the end, if you have a company of 800 people and it's one good person and 799 who don't know what to do, you're not going to have a good company.
Yeah, you really depend on your people. That's what really makes you special as a leader, where you really know that you can depend on your people. What's the website address of this organization, ExpressCells?
ExpressCells.com, no E at the front.
We've been speaking with Matt Handel, CEO of ExpressCells, here on Executive Leaders Radio.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Ed Zabar, CEO of Verif-y. Ed, what is Verif-y? What are you guys doing?
Hello there. We are a digital identity, privacy, and compliance company. Mm-hmm. We provide organizations with the ability to really know who their counterparty is and trust their relationships. And
how large or how small is the team?
We have 25 people in Philadelphia.
How'd you get the job with this company?
I founded it.
Oh, all right. And where are you from originally?
I was born in Detroit, but I grew up in Israel, came here in my 20s.
Why'd you go from Detroit to Israel?
Well, there was a war going on in Israel at the time, and my dad decided to leave his degree studies and go back to Israel to join the effort.
Ooh, and he took the family with him. How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the middle of 3 brothers.
All righty, Jeffrey?
Seems to be the theme today. Ed, tell us about mom and dad.
So my father was a business person marketing and sales and operations. My mother was an interior designer. My dad was also an entrepreneur.
Interesting. And you're an entrepreneur. What do you take to work every day at Verif-y that you learn from your mom and or your dad?
I think ethics is a big part of it. I think treating people respectfully and appropriately. I think looking beyond just the work itself, but seeing that there are other people there, and those are people that they have lives. That's something that we really try to bring into the company as a whole, and it's part of the culture.
Matthew?
Yeah, Ed, so you grew up in Israel, which has been called the startup nation, and you've come and you've founded your own company. What is it? What's in the water there? What do you get from growing up in Israel that lets you run a company?
I think there's a constant tension that's because of the country being, in volatile situations frequently. People need to do things and to do them fast and to do them very well. I think I took that with me, and I think I see inefficiencies in markets. This is my fourth startup, and really trying to find ways to fix those things and do better and scale it up.
You called it the pressure to survive when we were talking before. Tell me what you meant by that.
Well, again, being that there's constant threat by surrounding countries, people are in a constant state that they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I think because of that, you need to do things today, and you need to do them well today.
Mm-hmm. True.
And even though things were turbulent, you mentioned that you had a pretty standard childhood, played a lot of sports. What sports did you enjoy?
So it was mostly karate and archery and running.
Those are a lot of individual sports. What's that tell us about you?
Well, I was always trying to do something that I can control and I can perfect to the utmost extent. And I think that's part of the thing that I'm trying to bring to the company I'm with today.
Mm-hmm. How's that perfection come through? What are you talking about?
Well, I think I hold everybody to a very high standard, and myself included. I try to lead by example of doing things in a proper way and in the best possible way. Mm-hmm. And I think people strive to achieve that. And as a company, that brings us to a better position every day.
Pat?
Ed, what do you do at Verif-y, and where does that come from in your background?
It's a good question. So we validate identities, we validate companies, we validate counterparts that people have to work with on a daily basis. So we serve organizations. And I think from my background, the honor, the trust, the interactivity is something that I grew up with from my dad's side of business and from my mom's ethics. So these are things that we grew up with, and I think I'm bringing them to the company and bringing them to organizations that need that service.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
And you mentioned that your mom was an interior designer. Could you tell us a little bit about what she was doing?
Yeah, so she helped design homes and offices and other parts of where we live in a very articulate and graphically advanced way, if you will. That's what she did.
And in your business, in a software company, developing a product, how would you say that interior design, attention to detail has carried over into your ability to make this product?
Yeah, so until now I didn't make that connection, but I think the ability to really define a certain aspect of interest for the person that you're dealing with in a very graphically attractive way and easy to consume has led us to have a platform that really allows users and companies to have a frictionless experience and a pleasant experience as they go through these steps of validation and verification.
So, Ed, if we knew you really well, what are we missing? What big chunk of you were we not covering in this interview so far?
I think we touched on most of it, but I am very driven. I think I have high expectations from the people around me, and I expect them to expect a lot of things from me as well, and I try to deliver on that and not disappoint. Mm-hmm. And I really important to me is to work with amazing people, and I think I'm very lucky with that. I had the fortunate of surrounding myself by some incredible people.
Jeffrey?
Ed, you mentioned in the green room you spent some time in the Army as an intelligence officer. How does that experience translate into what you're building today at Verif-y?
That's good. I think I try to learn everything I can about competitors, but also about new opportunities, and really dig in there, whether it's myself or with my team, to really understand, is there an opportunity there? Is there something we should be considering when we're doing something new? Should we drop something because it's no longer important? I think the attention to detail and really driving down to understand what's in front of you has a direct correlation.
And you've had 2 successful technology startup exits. What have you learned from those home runs and exits that you've done that you're going to apply to this new venture?
I think you have to be optimistic as an entrepreneur. And I think the hard work is something that you always have to put in. And you have to you keep yourself open to new opportunities and new ideas, whether it's from within the team or outside advisors, and even from people that are trying to engage you from outside businesses.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Yeah, you're the middle of 3 brothers, 3 brothers being our theme of the day. Tell me what being the middle did to you.
It's made me wish I had broader shoulders, but I had good interactions with my brothers. Like someone said before, it's like a constant battle that you have to make sure that you're positioning yourself right. But I have very warm relationships. Both my brothers are advising me in the company today.
You said you wished you had broader shoulders. What did that mean?
You know, you always have to get to where you're going, and you have 2 other people running with you. So, you know, the stronger you are, the faster you are, the better it is.
Wait, tell me more about that.
I think brothers are. I have 3 little boys. Brothers are by nature competitive, or some brothers are, and I think that's part of this thing I grew with. I grew up with competitive, very smart, very capable brothers, and you always strive to do better because of that. And I think that's some of who I am right now is because of that.
What do you mean? It's some of who you are. How does that play as a business, as someone who started multiple businesses? What does that have to do with it?
I think I'm very competitive. I think I'm very aware of my surroundings, and I always make sure that if I'm doing something, I've done the homework to understand that this is actually something I want to spend time and effort and money on. And I think I use my brothers even today with advice to everything I'm doing. So I trust them because we grew up in similar circumstances, obviously, and we have similar values. And I know that if they give me advice, if I'm going the wrong way, it's genuine.
Mm-hmm. Ed, you said that you're very aware of your surroundings, but it doesn't sound like that's just you. That's kind of what your product is at Verif-y, right? You're helping your clients be aware of their surroundings. Is that true?
Exactly. That's a very good point. That's part of what we do is let them know who they're dealing with all the time, continuously, in order to ensure that they don't fall into traps that are unnecessary or they could avoid.
Ed, do you think you're ever going to retire?
When I'm 100.
So
maybe a little bit after.
So the answer is no.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of things that I want to achieve. So life is short and I want to do a lot.
So it's not about the money necessarily?
No, I think it's about the challenge. I think the mental challenge that keeps me up. And I think the interaction and the challenge from the people in the team that they say, oh, what about this? Or what about that? Or we don't agree with you. And I love that. I think we're just now facing a significant challenge in our company. And we had a team come together and brainstorm. And that's, to me, the best part of the whole thing.
So really, you really appreciate the camaraderie and the difference in opinion and the challenge and really working with the best people and pulling them all together. Do you have people that have been with you through multiple businesses?
Not at this point. I have some advisors that have been with me for multiple businesses, but not in this business.
Mm-hmm. What's the website address for this organization known as Verif-y?
It's verify.com with a dash between the F and the Y.
Let me have that one more time.
Verify.com with a dash between the F and the Y.
Mm-hmm. What's the best part of your job nowadays?
Waking up in the morning and seeing what's the next challenge to get in front of, and having the people help me do that.
Mm-hmm. We've been speaking with Ed Zabar, CEO of Verif-y here on Executive Leaders Radio. Jeffrey, could you give us a rundown on who else we've had on the air today, please?
It was a great show. We started with Doug George, President and CEO of Stuebner, James Lovett, the CEO of Myonex, Matt Handel, CEO of ExpressCells, and Ed Zabar, CEO of Verif-y.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Jeff Mack, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Pat Riley, USI, and Ben Drummond, D2 Integrated Solutions, for giving me a hand structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. We'd like to thank our listening audience for listening, because otherwise we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.